Today on the Invested Mindset, we're going to talk about fundamentals of real estate investing. I'm your host, Tom Beery. My podcast is designed to help new and seasoned investors and entrepreneurs break free from the financial confusion by sharing real-world investing and business strategies that they can use to build lasting wealth and freedom. So on today's episode, we're going to talk about the fundamentals of real estate investing. And over the course of the last 11 years or so, I've started several businesses, but absolutely without doubt, the one that has made us the most money, the one that has launched us, is real estate investing. And I literally love real estate because there are so many ways to make money. I tell people all the time, there's at least 1,000 ways to make money in real estate. You just got to pick 2 or 3 and go with it. You just go with it. People ask me all the time, what do you think the best way is? Should I be a fix and flipper, or should I do this, or should I build a rental portfolio? And you can't really answer that question because everybody's different. Everybody's at a different place in their life. Everybody's at a different place in their career and in their life cycle. What I do when I have small children may not be what I want to do when I am an empty nester. Right? Which may not be what I want to do when I'm older. I might want way more passive things at that point in my life. So real estate is not one thing. It cracks me up when I hear people say, so Tom, what's going on in the real estate market right now? Okay. Please don't ever ask me that question, because there is no such thing as the real estate market. There isn't. When you take a look at real estate, you've got to understand that there are thousands of different real estate markets all at the same time. So let's break it down a little bit and let's tailor that question a little bit better. So when we look at this big thing called real estate, first of all, there's no national real estate market either. And when you're watching the news, whether it's, Fox, CNN, MSNBC, whatever, legacy media you listen to, and they say real estate's doing this or real estate's doing that, you have to discount virtually everything you hear after that. Because what they're talking about is national numbers. They're aggregating all the real estate from all around the country into one statistic that they can feed you. And that market does not exist. What single-family housing is doing in Miami has absolutely nothing to do with what single-family housing in Beaumont, Texas is doing. Okay, 2 totally different markets. One might be booming and prices are through the roof and, houses are just flying off the shelf faster than they're listed. And the other one may have long listing times and houses are languishing and not selling. And at some points, that might be Beaumont that is languishing, and at other points, it might be Miami that is languishing. Although the two have absolutely nothing in common. Those 2 markets have absolutely nothing in common. So when we look at real estate and we start talking about it, we have to be more granular. We have to be more focused. So the first thing we can do is dissect it, like I just did, by geography. Every market has its own set of statistics. If you look at major markets, let's look at Tampa, Dallas, and Indianapolis. Now, 3 very different markets, all major markets, but their housing is not going to move the same as each other. In fact, right now, they are not moving the same at all. Tampa, houses are sitting longer than they have in years. Housing prices are starting to see some softening in Tampa. We are not seeing such a softening in Dallas. And Indy, it doesn't see a lot of ups or downs. It just steadily trudges with incremental increases most generally. So when we take a look at real estate, you've got to separate these national numbers, these national statistics out, because there is no national market. People don't buy houses nationally. They buy in a particular market. And in a major metro, you have to even break that down even further by what we call submarkets. So let's take Houston, for example. Houston has probably 30 or 40 different submarkets to it. What is happening in the Heights area of Houston is not the same thing as is happening in the Clear Lake area of Houston. Totally different areas, totally different parts of town. Actually, they're probably 45 minutes apart from each other on a good traffic moment. So they don't really have much in common, even though they are both considered Houston, right? So we've got to start taking a look at things more granularly. Now, we've talked about geography. We also need to acknowledge things that are happening in major metros don't necessarily transpose into rural areas. You could have the major metropolitan areas losing value like we saw in early 2009, and the rural areas not really losing much value at all, just holding their own, because they didn't go up as high as those major markets did. They didn't go up as high as those big metro areas did. So they didn't see the big falls that we saw in the Great Recession. Now, that's geography. Now let's take a look at asset class, because we got to look at asset class too. When people talk about real estate, most generally what they're really talking about is houses, single-family owner-occupied houses. But there are other areas of real estate that we need to consider as well. What about single-family rentals? What about townhomes, condos? How about apartment complexes, mobile home parks, RV parks, self-storage facilities, industrial, warehouse, hotel, motel, retail, quick service restaurants? All of that is real estate as well. And I know everybody likes to lump all of those together and call that commercial real estate. Oh, commercial real estate sucks right now. That's another dumb question. That's another dumb statement. There is no such thing as commercial real estate. Yes, there are a lot of different types of real estate that are identified as commercial, but they don't all operate the same. They don't all go up and down at the same time. You will have a situation where hotel motel might be suffering, but apartment complexes are skyrocketing. You might have that same situation between self-storage is going crazy and selling at really, really high multiples or high or low cap rates, and retail centers are not. You might have them moving in two different directions. You might have one that is steadily going up while the other one is going down in the same market, in the same submarket at the same time. There is no such thing as the commercial market, just like there is no such thing as the housing market. We have to be more specific and we have to be more granular. Now, that's just an intro to the various aspects of real estate, the various ways that you need to look at it and dissect it. But there are also a lot of other things that we need to consider when we're deciding what to do in real estate. The first one, other than geography and asset class, is strategy. Now we need to decide, what are we going to do with it? I've decided that I'm going to buy single family homes. I've decided that I'm going to buy them in this particular submarket of this town or this city. That's the first two decisions. Now, what's the next decision I need to make? So what am I going to do with them once I buy them? Am I going to flip them? Am I going to buy and hold, rent them out? Am I going to use them for short-term rentals, mid-term rentals? Am I going to, pad split them or do ground up construction? What am I going to do with this real estate? Because there's all those different things that you can do. You can subdivide, you can develop, you can redevelop, you can build ground up, you can do horizontal only and just sell the land. And then if I'm buying something that's already existing, I've got to decide yet again, do I want a momentum play? Do I want a value add? Or do I want a heavy lift, extreme value add? Let me explain the differences there. A momentum play is I'm buying a property already existing, ready to rent out, and it doesn't need much work. Oh, it might need a little paint here, something small, cosmetic, but it doesn't need anything major. That's called a momentum play. I'm buying it on the current value, and I'm going to make my money by buying it at a price that makes sense relative to the rents that I can charge. That's a momentum play. Then that's the safest play, by far the safest play. Now, the next one is a value add. I'm going to buy an existing property, and I'm going to add some value to it by doing something else. And I'm buying it based on the fact that I think I can add this value by doing this other thing. What would a value add look like? Well, maybe I'm going to re-side the house. It's a single family home and the siding is bad. Everything else is good, but I'm just going to put new siding on it. And I think it's going to really increase the appearance of the home, which in turn is going to allow me to charge more in rent. That would be a fairly easy example of a value add. Well, that's a little bit riskier because I am assuming a couple of things. First of all, I'm assuming the price that I can get that siding replaced for. And the risk in that is that when my contractor starts digging in and tearing off the old siding, and they will most likely start finding other things wrong that I didn't see when I purchased the home. So that's called scope creep. And that scope is probably going to creep on me in that scenario. Or the city in the inspection process is going to say, oh, you've taken this siding off to replace it with this better siding. Now we want you to also do this, this, and this. And that's forced scope creep. Forced scope creep. That's hard to say. Those are the risks that we look at when we look at a value add real estate deal. Now, the extreme value add is what we call a heavy lift. Now, that one is I'm going to buy this house, and it's currently a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, but it's got a lot of ground here. So I'm going to put an addition on it, and I'm going to put a master suite on it, making it into a 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath. And once I do, it's going to be worth X. Now, that's an extreme value add. Heavy lift. Lots of construction to it. That's going to be the highest risk, potentially highest reward too, if you can get it bought right and you can get the work done right, and you don't have a lot of scope creep and you don't have a lot of governmental issues with the city or the county or whatever jurisdiction you're working under. It could have a high reward to it, but I'm just telling you, it is the highest risk strategy. And then you'll also, throughout your course of being a real estate investor, you have to constantly analyze, do I still want to be active or do I want to be passive? Or do I just want to start out passive? Because in virtually every real estate transaction, there are two people involved. There is the active investor and the passive investor. And this isn't talked about a lot, but when Melissa and I were buying all the single family homes we bought, and I think at our peak we had 86 single family homes, we weren't buying them with our own money. We were buying them with other people's money. We were using OPM, other people's money. We were raising capital from friends, people that we had met at real estate organizations that we belonged to, they had decided they wanted to be in real estate, but they wanted to be passive. And we had decided we wanted to be in real estate, but we wanted to be active. And what a great situation that is, because when the passive and the active works together, they can get a lot of deals done. So we would find a house, and back then we were doing heavy lifts, extreme heavy lifts. We would buy a house, we would gut it to the studs, put in new plumbing, new air, new heat, new electrical in a lot of them as well. All new mechanicals, re-sheetrock them, new bathroom, new kitchen, new flooring, and then we'd rent them out. That was our model. That was our strategy. And we did that with a lot of houses. We knew the cost. We had the contractors. We just moved them from one house to the next to the next. Sometimes we had 2 or 3 houses sitting waiting for them to get done and get to them. But we were the active investor. We were the ones that were going out and finding those deals. We were the ones negotiating with those sellers and buying those houses. We were the ones going out and raising the capital from the passive investors. And we were the ones running the crews. We were the ones making sure that the work was done. We were the ones that were managing the property after the fact, once it was fixed up. Our leasing team would go out and market that property and get a tenant in it and qualify the tenant and make sure we underwrote them and do the best we could. Obviously, still a bad tenant or two will get through, but you want to have good quality underwriting for your tenants. And we were doing all of that. What did the passive investors do? They brought the money. That's it. They brought the money and they cashed the checks. So when you are thinking about, I'm going to get into real estate, you have to ask yourself, do I want to be active or do I want to be passive? And over time, that can change. We started 100% active. And over time, that changed to now we do some active, but we do mostly passive. And that's okay. As your situation changes, as your age changes, as your ambition changes, as your wealth changes, as your knowledge changes, as your resources change, so should these other things that we've gone through. Probably one of the, I want to say, saddest things that I've seen is friends of mine that have been in the real estate business longer than I have, and I've been in it almost 20 years now, be 20 years next year. And they've been in it longer than I have, and they're still doing the exact same thing in the exact same neighborhood with the exact same asset class and the exact same strategy that they were doing when I met them 18 or 20 years ago. They've not grown. They've not changed. They've not evolved over time to keep up with what's going on in the marketplace. They just keep doing the same thing. And in most cases, they're not building wealth. What they've built is a really good job for themselves. Now, it's their job. They own the job. They are self-employed. But I tell you, they're not business owners. They're not business owners. And the difference between self-employed and business owner, as Robert Kiyosaki put it in his book, The Cash Flow Quadrant, you got 4 places that you can make money. You can make money from a W-2 as an employee, or you can make money self-employed. That means you have a job, It's just your job. You own the job. Or you can make money as a business owner. And that's where other people are doing the work for you and with you. And you have multiplied yourself with employees. And this business can run without you for a period of time, maybe weeks, maybe months, depending on where you are. And then ultimately, you want to get to the point where you are a passive investor and where you are just strictly making money off of your money. That's what a passive investor in real estate is. They're the investor. Now, a lot of passives also hold a W-2. We can be in some of these quadrants simultaneously, right? You can have a job. A lot of my investors have jobs, but they also have some money they've accumulated over the years. And while they're going to work, they also send their money to work. And they send their money to work a lot of times in these real estate transactions as a passive investor. So, a lot of decisions to be made for the person that says, I'm going to get into real estate. Because that statement doesn't mean anything, really. There's a lot of questions that you have to answer. What kind of real estate? What asset class? What market? What submarket of that market? And then what strategy am I going to use? And which side of that equation do I want to be on? Do I want to be an active investor or do I want to be a passive investor? Do I want to be the one that is providing the time and the labor, or do I want to be the one providing the money? And in most real estate transactions, in investment, there are both present. I hope that helped you understand a little bit more about the fundamentals of investing in real estate and some of the questions that we have to ask ourselves before we dive in. I tell people all the time, you want to have a buy box. You want to build this buy box to determine, what am I going to buy? Because if you just go out there chasing every piece of real estate that's for sale, you're going to be so scattered and you're going to be just looking at everything, and you will not become a master of anything. You want to be a master in a very tight little buy box that you have created that says, this is what I want, this is where I want it, this is what I'm going to do with it. Once you have identified that, now you can start studying that particular type of real estate, that particular type of asset, and you can become a master of that one thing. I think the next thing that you have to do is you got to build a team as you go. I'm not saying go out and build a team before you've ever done your first transaction. I see people try that all the time too. They call us, I'm going to be in real estate investing. I'm going to start buying properties, and I just want to make sure that you're going to be able to provide me the funding. Okay. Well, first of all, we only provide funding based on the deal itself, most generally. So until you've identified something to buy, I can't tell you I'm going to lend on it. I can't tell you, I would lend to you on this imaginary piece of real estate that you may or may not ever find. So it's hard to go out and build the team before you start. But as you go, you're going to need to build a team of professionals that you can go to over and over and develop a relationship with over time. Some of those professionals, you're going to need brokers, real estate brokers or realtors, depending on the asset class. You're going to need title companies or an escrow agent in your area. In some states, attorneys do that. Other states use title companies to do that, depending on where you're going to be purchasing. You're going to need contractors. You're going to need a real estate attorney. You're going to need CPAs. You're going to need a property inspector, an appraiser. If you're doing commercial real estate, you should also learn about cost segregation, and you'll need a cost segregation analyst. That's not going to be needed probably in single family homes as much as it would be commercial. But as you go, you're going to need these professionals that are going to be able to help you in your real estate career. And as you find somebody that does a good job, stick with them, treat them well, pay them on time, do what you say you're going to do, build a reputation. I promise you, I've bought real estate that was worth 7 figures. We've bought a couple of pieces that were worth 8 figures. My reputation in this industry is worth more than any building I've ever bought. Doing what you say you're going to do, especially with the professionals that you want to do business with over and over, it will set you apart. There are so many people that say they're going to do things and they don't do them, or they don't do things in a timely manner. They say they're going to do it by the end of this week, and 3 weeks later, you're still waiting on them. That does not build you a good reputation in this business. Do what you say you're going to do. Under promise, over deliver. That's always been my mantra, and it always will. Because when I call somebody up and I tell them who I am, and they've heard of me, and they've heard nothing but good things, I'm going to get that person's attention. They're going to help me. They're going to do what I need them to do, even if I need it on a rush, even if it's the first time I'm doing business with them. In real estate investing, regardless of whether it's single family or whether it's commercial, whether we buy shopping centers now nationwide. The people in that sphere, it's really still a small knit community. Word travels, names travel, brands travel. And what I would tell a new real estate investor that most people won't probably talk about is that you're building your resume from the very first deal you do. You're building a resume. And that resume is going to determine whether people want to continue to do business with you or future people want to do business with you. That reputation is going to follow you in this industry, good or bad. And it's very, very valuable. When you're a person that does what you say you'll do in this industry, you will stand out. And it will put you to the front of the line in many cases. I've had multiple properties that had multiple offers at a time. Our offer was not the highest offer, but it was the one accepted. We got the deal over others that had offered more money because of our reputation, because they felt they had a better chance of us closing than the other offers. That's powerful, and that can make you millions over your career. Hope this podcast was helpful for you, and thanks for listening. We'll see you at the top. Thanks for joining us on The Invested Mindset. To continue receiving actionable wealth building strategies, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Turn on the auto download to ensure you never miss an episode. And if today's insights move you closer to financial freedom, please take a moment to leave us a rating. It helps fellow entrepreneurs and investors discover these valuable strategies. I'm Tom Berry, and I'll see you the next time as we continue building a path to lasting wealth and freedom.